This week on Capitol Report.
I accept your nomination to be the Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
Senator Chris Murphy looking ahead to November and another 6 years in Washington.
I feel like I am the luckiest person in the world.
But hold the phone. A couple of Republicans want a shot at the Murph.
I'll hold him accountable for his domestic and foreign policy.
We need to secure the border. We need to cut the unnecessary spending.
Congresswoman Jahana Hayes also shifting into campaign mode.
I'm excited to finish the work and really convince people that they should send me back for a fourth term.
Plus, a familiar face with a checkered past, hoping for a second chance.
But I'm going to work hard to convince voters that I should be back.
While the incumbent isn't resting on his laurels.
I represent the present, I represent the future of the city of Bridgeport and the town of Stratford, and my opponent, unfortunately, represents a relic of the past.
Plus, more state accolades for the Husky and a sweet victory for the Lollipop. Capitol Report starts now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dutch. We are so glad you're spending part of this Sunday morning alongside the Power Panel. Look who's here, EBZ, Eva Bermuda Zimmerman here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Joe Harrison was former Speaker of the House, finally getting his rest after a long session. Huh?
Long session, very tired.
Liz Karanowicz, Republican strategist. And look at the voice of freedom, 94.9, Lee Elsey. Can I get that like hawk screech when I say the voice of freedom next time? We'll work on that.
An eagle.
An eagle screech. All right, guys. So, hey, remember Kosta Diamantis? Well, allow me to refresh your memory. He's the former deputy budget director for the Lamont administration, who was in charge of school construction grants and review. Got it? Well, okay. Well, Diamantis is in a little bit of trouble these days. Last Thursday, the feds knocked on his door and charged Diamantis with extorting private contractors on a number of school construction projects. He's also charged with accepting tens of thousands of dollars of bribes from those contractors, 22 counts in all. Diamantis, of course, has pled not guilty. You may recall he retired from his position in 2021, the same day he was placed on administrative leave pending a misconduct investigation. Guys, your thoughts on this one? Who wants a piece of this one? Lee, come on, take it out.
So I vision Satriel's pork shop, right? Wicker chairs, Tony Soprano, sitting out front, conspiring who to shake down next, right?
Don't put Paulie in that category.
Come on, that's exactly what's going on.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Okay, allegedly. I'm sorry.
Allegedly.
He is a lawyer. I don't want to get screwed. So yes, that's sort of what my vision is from beginning to end. But, you know, I'm sorry. Everybody attached to this is guilty in some way, shape, or form, aren't they?
Well, it doesn't look good. And if you read the indictment carefully, which unfortunately I did last night, when other 3 people involved already had pleaded guilty and went before the judge, that means they're now testifying against you. Given what we see in the real evidence in the indictment, the text messages, the back and forth, the clear changing of money, I would not want to be his lawyer in this particular case. It seems like an uphill fight. And it is another black eye for the state of Connecticut, right? It doesn't look good. It's not good to have those type of people
Liz, back to Corrupticate. Back to Corrupticate.
The return of Corrupticate. Listen, this is the guy that the governor said was going to deliver the New London Pier project under budget and on time. And, you know, they never should have allowed the school construction program to go from DAS, where there were checks and balances, to make it a political program over at OPM. There was absolutely no reason for that. The governor's office is culpable. Yes, they let him go once this broke, but they never should have let that happen in the first place. And that's where there needs to be some responsibility taken. Whose decision was that? Why did it happen? They've got to come clean with the public. It's cost thousands and millions of dollars.
It doesn't matter which party you're with. You don't want corruption in our state. Definitely not at that level of the executive branch. It's very embarrassing.
Yeah, and they really sold the idea of moving over from DAS to OPM to the governor's office and the legislature when I was there. They talked about the hurdles, the dual functions, and it did make sense on its face. But Liz, to your point, you're exactly right. When you make it a political position, things like this can happen.
I don't know how to transition from this one, but hey, so Connecticut's junior senator Chris Murphy has his sights on a 3rd term in Washington. Murphy, well-liked Democrat, has a big campaign war chest that's flush with cash, about $9 million. Murphy has a solid track record when it comes to getting things done in the Senate. Is he beatable? Is there a Republican that stands a chance of taking him down? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But first, here's a quick clip of the Murph speaking to the hometown crowd at last week's Democratic convention. Watch this.
I want to show the people of this state that I don't take this job for granted. I want to show the people of this state that I'm willing to do something hard, something a little weird, in order to make sure that I'm listening to everybody, whether they watch cable news religiously or even if they barely know the names of their senators. Everybody counts in this state. Everybody matters in this state.
As for Republicans, well, they couldn't settle on a candidate, and that is setting up a primary between Beacon Falls First Selectman Jerry Smith and businessman Matt Corey, who challenged Murph last time around in 2018. Corey recently decided to jump into the race, saying, well, wasn't satisfied with who the GOP was running, while Smith says going to a primary, of course, is not a good situation for anyone. Watch this.
I think a primary is going to be a problem. I mean, it's raising money's tough. I think it's unnecessary for a primary. It's going to put an unnecessary burden on the taxpayers. 7-day early voting for a primary and for the U.S. Senate and Connecticut Republican Party is just an undue expense that the taxpayers don't need.
Senator Murphy's sitting on $9 million. He's helping candidates all over the country. That's going to trickle down into congressional races, state Senate races, and state rep races. So we need a strong candidate to hold him accountable for all of his failures in Washington, D.C.
It's my Republican friends, you guys always spin this. Well, hey, it's a good idea, a primary. Let's just, get more name ID out there. But, probably not a good idea.
Well, look, I think if you look at the 2022 primary as an indicator, right? I mean, this is going to be a campaign that's fought on the ground. And if you remember in that race, Leora Levy clipped Themis in that primary because Themis wasn't working and wasn't going and knocking doors. So I think in this case, neither of the candidates has a lot of money to get up on television with advertisements and do those things. So this will be about a ground game. This is going to be about going out and targeting those voters, knocking doors and canvassing to get people out to vote, right? Turnout in a Republican primary is going to be very low. So they're going to have to get people to the polls.
And Eva, how does Murphy get enthusiasm among the people in a year when everyone expects just him to just roll?
Well, enthusiasm's all about...
How would it affect the down ticket?
The down ticket, the enthusiasm's all about the Fight Back Connecticut, what he's built, the years that he's put into the state of Connecticut. Honestly, the ground game doesn't exist when it comes to Blumenthal or Murphy. He is beloved. There are champions for the state doing gun violence prevention. So it's going to affect highly because, all of the support that he's done, all the money that he's put in, he's going to put into those candidates that don't have as much of a clear victory or clear path to victory.
My criticism, if I can, for the Republican candidates is simple. They should have started a year ago. I mean, this should have been ground game day one. You got to take down an elephant like Murphy. You've got to start a year and a half before the election actually happens, and that's a minimum, raising money. So I hate to say it, they're both nice guys, but they can't be.
It's funny, Lee, I was thinking the exact same thing when they're talking. I'm like, wait a minute, you just don't decide a month before the convention if you're really going to make a game out of it. They're just now fighting who's going to be the sacrificial lamb to be on the ballot in November. Murphy's not going to be beaten for all the reasons that we can talk about repeatedly. His bipartisanship, let's talk about the border deal, the gun deal. I mean, those are the type of things that raise somebody's national profile beyond Connecticut, and I think he's achieved that. Now he's partnering with a governor about the loneliness and reaching out to people. He's an amazing individual, and he's doing a great job. He's got no chance of being beat.
Well, and I think to your point, Eva, right, because of that, his role in the Senate is at stake, right? I mean, he wants to maintain a majority in the Senate so he can continue to grow his role and responsibility. So I think his sights are going to be set in other places to go and advocate for other candidates, and those resources will go elsewhere.
All right, guys. Hey, Democrats in the state's 5th congressional district had their nominating convention last week. The party backing Congresswoman Jahana Hayes in her quest for a 4th term in Washington. The 5th district will be a rematch between Hayes and Republicans George Logan, who should get the party nod this week. Hayes is gearing up for what is expected to be one of the hottest races in the nation. Watch this. Goody, goody.
I plan to make sure that people understand that he has a voting record. Many of the things that we're talking about, many of these aspirational ideas, he's on record having voted in a way that I don't think is in line with this district. He is aligning himself with some of the most extreme members of the Republican Party. And I think people need to have all that information when they go to make their decision. And I believe that I've done the work and people will respond to that.
Republicans will hold their nominating convention for the 5th District this week. Here's what candidate George Logan had to say about his vision. Quote, I'm going to Congress to deliver transformative results to crush inflation, secure our borders, make our communities safer, and return us to its rightful place, the U.S. as a leader in the world. Lee, what do you got here?
She's scrambling. She's desperate. I think she's begging for vote. She won by 2,000 votes. She's 406th out of 435 logged in Congress people. That's how low she is. She doesn't have much further to fall. Listen, I think she's scrambling. I think she's
maybe it was a wake-up call, but it's not scrambling and it's not desperate. She's spent the last 2 years dedicating her time, making sure she's putting in agricultural bills to help nutrition in public schools. She's fulfilling her commitment to education in the state of Connecticut, and she's shown that for the last 2 years, so she's ready to fight.
Logan's outraised her 2 quarters in a row, so we'll see how that goes forward, too.
I do agree, though. You said in the opening, Tom, that it is going to be one of the most watched races in the country. It is really a unique thing. It's a rematch, so you look at the old numbers, as us political junkies do. Trump being on the ballot, right? And how does George Logan maneuver around that? Every time it's come to the question of Trump, he's sort of dodged it a little bit. He's going to have to answer that once and for all. And how does that affect it? But it's going to be a close race, and it's one that everybody will be watching around the country.
And more to come on this. Hey, so when they coined the phrase, the pen is mightier than the sword, they were referring to our pal Danny Haar. Up next on Cap Report, we're talking politics with the greatest head of hair in the Capitol Press Corps. Danny Haar, when we get back, do not go away. All right, learn the block.
Campaigning.
The legislative session is in our rearview mirrors. We want to take some time to talk about what else? Well, 2025 budget policy and the likelihood of a Democratic supermajority next session. So joining us from the state capitol this morning, you can't get enough of it, senior editor and columnist with the Hearst Connecticut Media Group, our pal Danny Haar. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning. Great to be out here. So Danny, not a big crowd at the Capitol today.
Hey, yeah, good for that. So, Danny, we have a balanced state budget for next year, sort of. But you wrote a column warning about 2025-26 state spending. What's the problem, Danny?
The problem is the minute the governor signs that budget, all of this political talk about whether we're going to change the guardrails becomes a matter of simple third-grade arithmetic. You're spending $400 million on basic operations at UConn, the health center, CSCU, private providers, and a couple of other things, mental health. You're having to spend that money in the next budget cycle just to get back to zero, and that brings your cap from 4% that you're allowed to spend an increase to 2.7. That $400 million brings you to 2.7%. Can you do a budget with an increase of 2.7% from the real spending of this year? The answer is no. Speaker Ritter says to me 1 in the morning after the session ended, I'm very creative. He's going to have to be very, very creative because there doesn't seem to be a way to do it in my view.
Danny, the former speaker here, nodding his head. Hey, so looking back at the failure of the climate change legislation in the session that ended last week, what do you see happening in 2025?
Well, the climate change advocates are not giving up. You got to. I think there's a cartoon where they keep coming back. You know, Wile E. Coyote maybe. And at some point they're going to win a big bill. But it didn't happen this year, and they say they're going to do it next year. What they have to do is get by the sort of secret, unspoken thing. I guess I'm speaking it here. Is that the President pro tem of the Senate, Senator Looney, he doesn't seem bought into this, and there's a reason for that. I don't know what it is, but if they don't bring up a bill in the Senate, it doesn't pass. That's the basic idea. Danny, and they have to get past that.
Danny, housing reform fared a little better this year. What should we expect next year on that one?
Yeah, this was the off year for the big housing reform, the what's called fair share, which they tried on the long session, and they will again. I spoke to Erin Boggs at the Open Communities Alliance. She's leading the coalition. They're bringing it next year, and they're going to be smart about it. They're not going to try and ram it down people's throats. They're going to do a smart bill that's going to be hard for a lot of Democrats to vote against. That's going to be the battle. Fair share is the one where they say your town has to do X number of units or else. And it's going to be a combination of carrots and sticks.
Danny, Democrats hold big majorities in Connecticut's House and Senate, not to mention all the statewide congressional seats. Where are we going with that, Danny? What does that all mean?
Well, you know, what I'm hearing is that no Senate Democrat is vulnerable. The House is a little bit more, I know less about what's going to happen in the House because there are so many races, but with Trump at the top of the ticket, I don't see the Republicans picking up a whole lot of seats, maybe, but in the Senate, you already have 24 out of 36 that are Democrats. It could go up as much as 3. You know, the Greenwich seat, there's a tough race there, sort of. The seat in the Farmington Valley in Torrington, there's a good Democrat running there. And of course, our friend Rob Blanchard running against our other friend, Senator Wong. So it could go 2 or 3 more seats for Democrats. I don't think that's good for Democrats, personally. You can ask the Speaker when he's there. I don't think the Democrats want 26 seats.
Probably not. Danny Hauer from Hearst Media. We're always a little bit smart, Danny, when you're on Around Connecticut with Danny Hauer. Thanks a lot, Dan. Appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Up next on Cap Report, it's the Yahtzee of Bridgeport politics, an ex-con, second chances, and a signature drive. The fun never ends in the Park City. Details when we get back. Do not go away. Yahtzee, huh? Yahtzee. Comes to politics in Bridgeport, there's no shortage of drama. At last week's nominating convention in the 23rd District, incumbent State Senator Heron Gaston got the nod from the delegates. However, the man he defeated is former State Senator Ernie Newton. Newton, you may recall, spent some time in the federal pen for accepting bribes in exchange for official favors. Newton plans to petition to get on the primary ballot. He says he deserves a second chance, and the voters in Bridgeport and Stratford, well, they believe in Ernie. Watch this.
I grew up in this neighborhood and in Stratford all my life. So they believe in second chances. They believe in watching what I've done. I've been a leader. I'm president pro tem of the Senate, of the City Council. So I've earned the right to go back to Harvard and do what I do best, and that's to fight for this city.
I bring character, I bring dignity, I bring respect, and I bring integrity to the office that my opponent have violated the trust of the seat and the trust of the people of the town of Stratford and the city of Bridgeport. And I know that they're entrusting me to go back and to represent them with the highest level of integrity.
Guys, there could not be a more starker contrast between two people who are running for the office than Heron Gaston and Ernie Newton, right?
Yeah, I'd love to be able to sit here and say, well, look, Gaston's done such an amazing job up there. I met him multiple times on multiple issues, really smart, digs into the issues, seems genuinely authentic. And then you have Ernie Newton with all of his troubles, and you'd like to say, well, Ernie's never going to win. But it is Bridgeport, right? You just don't know. But, you know, I would urge every listener in the Bridgeport area to where you have a great senator. Everything he said is very true. Absolute great guy. Why would you want to go back? Newton was effective when he was there. But when you run afoul of the law repeatedly, it's going to happen again.
Two things. It is Bridgeport, so to the absentee ballots goes the victory, right? I mean, you know, everybody eyes on those ballot boxes to get stuffed because who knows what's going to happen.
Not this year. They're cleaning that up right now.
Oh, are they? The same cameras that were supposed to deter it from happening the first time? I think, look, there's a huge loss, too, in Bridgeport with Senator Marilyn Moore.
Yeah.
I personally think this is a great opportunity for the Republican Party to put a candidate out front and go run a strong campaign in Bridgeport. Continue doing the same thing over and over again, and you don't get different results, go offer a credible alternative and run a strong campaign in the city and actually offer voters something.
I think it's wishful thinking, honestly. When you look at Marilyn Moore's seat and right now the candidates who are falling in line to vie for that seat, at least the new play here is Trumbull and Monroe having a candidate who is actually viable. And then also other candidates like Shantae Hanks, who's deputy commissioner. You have other candidates like Bill Finch, who has name recognition. You don't need a Republican to get in the game when you have so many candidates who are qualified and actually could win.
You don't need a Republican? Well, I mean, the whole point is to have choice.
We have great choice.
I mean, come on, Eva. I mean, the whole point is to offer the voters an opportunity to choose between the two candidates. Absolutely, Republicans should offer an alternative because the Democrats are not doing Bridgeport residents any favors.
They can offer the alternative more to stir the debate, but the reality is, in big cities, primaries are the elections.
And guys, quickly, a lot of excitement in the 94th state rep seat in here in New Haven with Robin Porter not showing up to be nominated. Bueller.
Couldn't get a second. How does that happen?
Yeah,
That seems intentional.
I just don't know. You know, I served with Robin. Robin and I fought together and against each other on many issues. She is a fierce advocate, and for her just to bypass the convention and have her delegates go through something's going on. I hope everything's okay with her, but that's not something you do after you've served the state of Connecticut and your district for all those years. But her absence was noticed.
Quick litmus test for Bridgeport. Let's see if they pick the right person, finally, maybe once and for all. I mean, I know we're back, but I'd like to see that once. That'd be good.
All right, guys, next on Cap Report, a new state candy, a new state dog breed. We'll bark about the details when we get back. Do not go away.
I can't bark.
You can't bark, huh?
I should have said, you can bring it, you're just not going to win.
In case you missed it, the lollipop is the Connecticut's official state candy. The governor hasn't signed it yet, though, but lawmakers approved legislation at the end of the session. I guess the folks at the Pez factory in Orange aren't too pleased about this one. The other fun piece of legislation that passed, well, the Siberian Husky is now the official state dog of Connecticut. UConn winning another national title in basketball this year may have helped get this one over the finish line. Capital Report reached out to Yale's Handsome Dan, the Bulldog, for a reaction. He declined to comment, guys. What do you think, huh?
Well, Tom, is this when we're supposed to declare, you and I, that we're actually lobbying on behalf of the Pez dispenser?
Pez.
We want the veto.
There's a Seinfeld about Pez.
I mean, a dum-dum bill, that one. Anybody surprised by that?
Isn't there a candy bar called a Zero?
There is.
That's exactly how much I care.
Wait.
Zero.
You're not talking about that?
When are we getting? Is pizza done yet?
No,
I mean, that's got to get done.
All right, guys, that'll do it for the great
I'm making this one.
Eva's in the mix.
I'm making it.
Speaker Lizzie.
I'm backing up.
She's backing up for the shot. Here we go.
Brunson.
Oh! That was close. That was close.
Oh.